All right, here we go. This is cool. And I was reminded a little bit of this gentleman because I recently saw, I believe it was on X. There's a lot of talk about the Sabres and Kevin Adams, and as we know now, he has lost his job. But the gentleman that you see in front of you covered multiple sports in multiple cities, including our very own Buffalo, as part of the Empire Sports Network. I am very pleased to bring on a good friend, Josh Mora, onto the show. Pal, great to see you, man. And like I said, this was all spurred by a video from when you were working in Chicago. I believe you were traveling with the Hawks, and you happened to be maybe in Buffalo on that assignment. I can't recall if that was real, if that was true or not. But yeah, so I was just like, we got to get this guy back on the show. For all the people that remember you doing all your great work at Empire Sports Network. Um, yeah, just the hockey news. You still follow the Bills. You have your children up here in the Northeast, and so you still follow. And you know me, and you have friends from Buffalo, so you still follow the Bills. So a lot to talk about with you, and of course your most recent podcast project that I've been blessed to be a guest on an occurrence, and that was great. So we'll talk about that too. But anyway,
Sure.
very long introduction.
Bull, it's fantastic to be with you. Thank you. An honor as well. And great to be back in Buffalo. I was just up in that area about 10 days ago. But yeah, I barely remember being on television, but I do remember, it's a long time ago now, but I do remember being with the Blackhawks in Buffalo and the occasion. It was this time of year, I think, because I had come up to do a story on Patrick Kane, about what it was like about a city that produces the number one overall draft pick in the NHL. And so we talked to officials with the Sabres at the time. We talked to Congressman Brian Higgins because that's the district that Patrick grew up in. And then we ran it. I think we ran it in the post-game show after the game. If I recall, Patrick scored about 4 minutes into the game, and his dad and his grandfather were coming back up from the puck drop ceremony and missed the goal. They didn't see it on their way
Oh
back up to the
man.
box. And I think the Sabres won the game. The Sabres were good then. Speaking of things that are hard to remember, the Blackhawks were not yet. They had not started winning Stanley Cups, but we had come up to do that story and presented as part of the Blackhawks postgame show.
Yeah, very cool. So take me back before I talk current sports
Yeah.
to your time in Buffalo and Empire Sports. I mean, anybody that remembers Empire Sports Network obviously remembers you and Howard Simon and Brinson and the late Brian Blessing and so many wonderful. I'm leaving people out, I know, but an incredible cast and at the time was kind of groundbreaking and super cool.
Well, it was absolutely. I was in the business for 18 years, and those years at Empire were easily the best times of my career. I loved it so much. I loved covering those teams. You mentioned a bunch of the names. You left out Jason Bristol at the end. Chris Brown was with us for a while. Bramante Bryant, Bob Trimble, Kerry Sayers. I'm forgetting people too. But the whole team, the whole staff, the photographers, the videographers, everybody who put that together. And yeah, it was kind of groundbreaking because it was the very early days of regional sports networks. Mike Robitaille is another name. How
Yeah.
can I forget Roby?
Hockey Hotline,
Um,
yeah.
uh, um, all the different shows that we were doing were kind of innovative. We had all the sports writers, the late Jim Kelly, the writer, the late Larry Felser, the late Art Wander, um, uh, and breaking stories and competing with really good journalists like Tim Graham and Bucky Gleason and at the news, and as well as our colleagues in TV and radio. And it was just a lot of fun. The Sabres were good. The Bills were interesting. They're not as good as they are now, but you had the Doug Flutie, Rob Johnson stuff, that you had that wave after the Super Bowl era, and the community that so lives and dies with its sports teams, right? I've always said the reason Buffalo is such a great, passionate sports town is because those teams make Buffalo a national story. And there's so much national pride about that. And I loved every second of that, even more than being in Chicago, in my hometown, because the sports was everything. We were everything. Whereas in Chicago, there's more, there's sports, but there's more. And it was just so much fun. I cherish those memories a lot.
I appreciate that. I mean, obviously being a Western New Yorker, born and bred. Um, but I've always maintained that cities like Buffalo, Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, Milwaukee, they I feel like they have the fan bases, the same sort of, I'll call it the Great Lakes theme, where we all have the same accent. We all love our sports like
Yeah.
to die for, and we all love our food. I mean, is that, do you think in your travels, is that a pretty fair assessment?
I do, and when those people leave and go somewhere, live somewhere else, that all travels with them, right? I mean, there is that bond. It is your community, and it's something that's hard to replicate, in other places. And I'm living in Central Florida, and nobody's really from here. I mean, right? I mean, there are people from Buffalo, and people from Cleveland, a lot of people from Pittsburgh. In LA, it's the same thing. Yeah, there's a lot of Los Angelinos, but there's a lot of people from somewhere else. But not many people move to Cleveland. Not many people move to Detroit. A lot of people grow up there and stay there. And so yeah, so there's that bond. We're from here. This is us. The Bills are us. The Cavaliers are us. The Lions are us. Um, so that I think that is a big part of it. And so you have your regional and local food delicacies, right? You've got beef on whack. You've got, I mean, to say nothing of the wings, right? You've got the sponge candy. And Pittsburgh has the fries in the salad and the sandwiches, all that stuff, right? That matters. That says I'm from here, you're from here. We're even if we don't like each other, we have that in common, right? We might not be friends in Buffalo, but we're friends when we live in Orlando, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, you've obviously, being from Chicago, you've lived through some pretty good hockey times, but you were here through some pretty good Saber hockey times.
Yeah.
Does it shock you at this point, and you're living in Central Florida, so you're near Tampa, right? And
Yeah.
so you had the Tampa successes, you've had the Blackhawks successes, and yet since you were in Buffalo, the Sabres haven't really had that many of those successes. And being now in a 14-year drought, and now going through the change of top, Kevin Adams out,
Hmm.
Yarko coming in, who was already on the staff, as everyone
Yeah.
knows, but just
Yeah.
got elevated. Are you shocked being not out of Buffalo, watching what's happened over this last decade and a half with the hockey team?
I'm despondent more than I am shocked, right? I
Yeah,
mean, here's a community. There aren't Some communities have become hockey communities, right? Uh, but Buffalo's a hockey community. Buffalo's a hockey town, and in a way that a lot of cities are not, right? Many cities have both the NBA and the NHL. There are only a few that have just the NHL, and Buffalo's a great hockey town. And so it's really sad to me that the product has been as consistently poor as it has been. I missed the Ryan Miller era. I left just before that. I was there for the Hasek era and those great teams. But I rooted for even as I was covering the Blackhawks before they got good, I was rooting for the Sabres teams. And yeah, it's tough to see and tough to watch. And I know, I did watch from afar when Terry Pagula bought the team, and I know he cares, and he might care. I don't have any inside information about this, but he might care too much. Like, he doesn't know where his role as a fan and his role as an owner have to divide. To me, the best owners put the resources in place for those who really know their sport and their business to do what they do best. I can't comment about, because again, I'm not around any of these teams, but from a layman and an outsider's perspective, it looks like he's done that successfully with the Bills. He's gotten out of uh, uh, Bean and McDermott's way, and he has not done the same with the Sabres.
yeah, yeah, that's fair. And I think too, and again, I'm not privy to any really inside information at all with the
Mm.
Sabres, but I do believe one of the issues is that he came into ownership, but either was advised incorrectly about it. And look, when you come into owning a sports franchise and having never done it before, I mean, what does your sports network look like? It's probably pretty small, right?
Mhm.
So in terms of attracting knowledgeable people to walk him through the process of taking over a team, and who to trust and who to believe in, in the pure hockey side of things, he may have trusted the wrong people or just been misled because he didn't know better, right?
Mhm.
I would hope now, 14, 15 years later, he would know better. But, there's been what, 8 coaches, there's been 4 or 5 GMs at this point. Obviously, the mill of players has continued to churn over and over, year in and year out. Multiple number 1 overall draft picks and
Yeah.
number 2 overall draft picks, and still 14 years without a playoff spot is pretty remarkable. But
Yeah, it's monumental in
yeah,
the wrong way, unfortunately. Yeah.
yeah. So I want to ask you, since again you're in Central Florida,
Yeah.
you do come up here to Western New York at times, but I want to know about the Josh Allen effect on a national level. Like, have you noticed there in Central Florida more Bills fans than there were, let's say, 5, 10 years ago?
Well, that's at 10, yes. But look, Bills fan. There are a lot of people who are from Buffalo who are
Sure.
in Central Florida. And in fact, there's a New York beer project. I think it's the only one outside of Western New York, about 8 minutes from where I live, and the food is outstanding. We go there with some frequency. Um, but yeah, I mean the Bills are relevant, right? And so, just like when your team is good, you're more likely to wear your stuff out. Um, uh, yes, I see Bills hats everywhere. I see 17 jerseys everywhere. And again, nobody's really from here, right? So you do see
Right.
that for other
Yeah.
teams, but Bills fans always wear their stuff, and I always notice it, right? They have the license plates, they have hats, whatever it is. So, but look, he's the best quarterback in the league. I mean, he is. So he's not, in my mind, he's not just yes, you see people who are Bills fans who wear his jersey, but you also see NFL fans who wear his jersey because he's that big of a story, and to the point where he's such a great player that I think sometimes he even gets overlooked a little bit. Like, oh yeah, we know Josh Allen, he's great, but what about who's the news? Cam Ward, or right? What about Bo Nix?
Well, and the funny thing is, I hate to say this, but I do feel like the Western New York fan base absolutely takes Josh for granted, like way too much. Like they just assume he's going to be here forever. Knock on wood, he'll never get hurt. All these things. I think where.
You were saying that they take Bills fans take him for granted
Oh
that
yeah,
he'll
right.
never.
So I do think Bills fans have to take a step back occasionally. Be like, look, you do realize who you have on your team. I mean, this guy, if his career ended today, he'd be in the Hall of Fame.
Yes,
He'd be in the Hall of Fame.
yes.
And
I
that's what people have to remember, I think, about him.
Yeah, he's special. And Bills fans should absolutely appreciate this time, right? I mean, I know they haven't gotten to the Super Bowl yet, and I people knock the Bills for that. Look, I remember growing up as a kid. When I was a kid, the Chicago Blackhawks were excellent. Wayne Gretzky and the Oilers stood in the way and blocked that early and mid '80s teams from making what they were probably the two best teams in the league at the time. And Josh Allen has had the misfortune of being in the league when the Chiefs have had their dynasty and they've been just a little bit better. Um, We'll see what happens this year. Obviously, the Chiefs are no longer a factor. Um, but yeah, Josh is really sensational. I mean, to the point where when other quarterbacks struggle in year one or year two, Josh is the model for, well, Josh Allen took 20 starts before he really came through. I mean, every Chicago Bears fan who's rooting for Caleb Williams is thinking the same thing. And but yeah, Josh is special. It's
Yeah. And the other, and he's very likable too. He's you know
right.
he's just he's again, you hear the term unicorn, and I just feel like he's almost perfect. I mean, we know he's not, but in terms of being an overall pro athlete slash celebrity, I mean, he's got the perfect relationship, the perfect wife. He's doing the we're having a baby announce, like all these things. He does everything so well. Pretty much everything he does well. Um, so yeah, I mean, we are so lucky to have him.
And look, Buffalo is not an easy place to live. It's why
Right?
it makes it special for people
Yeah.
who live there because you're all in that together.
Yep.
Um, and it takes a special athlete to really embrace that. Jim Kelly did. Um, and Josh has. And there's plenty of others in between, of course. But from a special team leader, exceptional talent kind of standpoint, it is a little bit of a unicorn, and Josh has embraced that, and it's been fun watching it and fun, singing Mr. Brightside and watching all of that and the enthusiasm that Bills fans have for their team and for their community. It's special, and Bills fans should always be grateful to have that not only in their quarterback, but that they have that all together.
Yeah, for sure. It's a
Fans.
great thing. It's pretty
It
remarkable what
is.
he's doing. And it just, I'm not gonna lie. I've said it here on the show, and I'll say it again, that I thought for sure at 21-0 the Bills were done.
Mhm.
That early in the game against the Patriots, I thought this game is over. I get it. They've come out flat and they've had incredible second halves throughout the year. But the Patriots are Mike Vrabel, different coach, Mays a different quarterback, playing for the division title against the reigning champs. There was just too much there for me to see. Even though the Patriots were a young group as a whole, I still felt like there was too much momentum in that game in their favor for them to lose. And I'm here to tell you I was dead wrong, obviously. And
Yeah.
that I kept watching the game. I didn't turn it off. I didn't change the channel. But
I,
man,
I, I had Bills fans tweeting me that says this roster is the worst roster in the league other than Josh. And you know who this was because you were on that thread. But and I'm watching the Bears and the Browns. I'm watching all the games, but I got the Bears and the Browns. I'm playing. No, no, no. The Browns roster is considerably worse. I know you get them this week, which is a good thing. But by the way, teams the week after playing the Bears this year are 2-10-1, and the two wins were real early in the season.
okay, good.
I I would like your chances, even if this were a team that's better than the Cleveland Browns. But this is not the Bills' best roster over the last 5 or 7 years as they've been good. But they might be the mentally toughest. We will see over December. I think they're going to win out. I think they'll beat the Eagles at home, and the games against the Browns and Jets, should be cakewalks. We'll see what happens in the playoffs. But if I were another AFC team and the Bills are in, that's the team I'd be scared of because they've been there.
No doubt. I mean, Lamar might get in, still a long shot, but we know Burrow and Mahomes are out. And then
Mhm.
you look at the roster of quarterbacks. I mean, look, Trevor Lawrence is having a hell of a year, and I don't think anybody saw that coming, right? Herbert's still out there. He's been kind of roller coaster-ish, but could pop out of it at any moment. Bo Nix kind of is what he is. May is what he is. But for me, man, I mean, if there was a year for the Bills to do something special and get to the Super Bowl, this would have to be it. I think the door's wide open, just based on what you said, their experience, their mental health. They've been there, they've done it. Now's the chance without that obstacle you mentioned earlier in the way to take advantage. My only concern for them is that, I mean, look at when the teams they've come back against haven't been very good. I mean, the Ravens have had a really tough year. And by the way, they're a team that never holds leads. They
Yeah.
blow leads all the time late in games, as we saw. The other game, obviously, the Bills came back was the Bengal game. The Bengals defense is horrific, right? And then they come back against the Patriots, who you would argue haven't played anybody all year. I mean, that argument was made, and everybody says, well, it's the NFL. Anybody can beat anybody on a given day. And that's true, but it really showed that the Bills outscored them 35-10 in the last 2.5 quarters of the game is pretty remarkable and says a lot about who the Bills are coming back against. So my fear isn't in the AFC, it would be in the NFC, right? It would be when we got to the Super Bowl. If you're playing against an LA with a Matthew Stafford maybe having the best year of his life, or fill in the blank who's over on the other
Yeah.
side, that's what I'm nervous about.
Well, look, you take your chances in the Super Bowl, though, right? Buffalo
Yeah,
fans, right? Of
yeah,
course you would.
for
The
sure.
Bills will have if it's the seven teams or or even if Baltimore is in, they're going to have the best. The Bills are going to have the best quarterback in the game in the AFC
Yeah,
playoffs. And look, Denver's the one team that of that would scare me the most as a Bills fan. But they've had sluggish first halves
yeah.
too. They've been a comeback team also. So look, it would be great if the Bills could win the division and get a home game or two. Uh, they have not been good on the road in the postseason. On the other hand, look, they've played mostly Kansas City on the road in the
Right.
postseason. So, that may be more about Kansas City than about the road. And the Bills just proved their mettle in a pretty tough road game on Sunday.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this later in the show, but um, Houston and Jacksonville scare me only because in recent history the Bills have not played well there. whether it's a
Yeah.
playoff game or regular season game, both those places, the Bills are relatively haunted in with Josh Allen at quarterback. So I get it.
Oh,
Every year is
I
different. The
went to
teams are
that
different.
horrific 9-6 game where Josh Allen kept sacking Josh Allen, right? The
Right.
other Josh Allen.
Yeah.
He has a different name now, but oh, that was
Yeah.
one of the worst football games I've ever seen.
Right.
But no, Houston's scary. Houston's
Yeah.
good. They've
Yeah.
got a really good defense.
For sure.
Yeah.
So lastly, at least in
Yeah.
terms of football, then I want to talk about your podcast. You watched the Browns.
Yeah.
Is there, aside from Myles Garrett, is there anything to be concerned for the Bills?
No, they're terrible. They're truly terrible. They're very poorly coached. Um, uh, Miles Garrett is a game wrecker, but they're beat up in the interior of the defensive line.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bears really confused Shadur Sanders a lot on defense. He throws a pretty good deep ball. If you give up if a team gives up explosives, they can be beaten. But they were banged up. They're banged up on the offensive line badly. I mean, even a couple of reserves went out during the game. The numbers ended up not being terrible for the Browns, but until the game was out of reach, they had 4 first downs. Until their last drive, where at that point Sanders had, I think he ended up throwing for 177 yards, but up until the final drive when it was 31-3, he'd only thrown for 112, and about 3/4 of that had come on 2 long passes. So, um, look, anything can happen in any football game, but this is one the Bills should be able to walk through.
And lastly, with you, I mean, talk a little
Yeah.
bit about your project with another former Buffalo sports TV guy, and Dennis Williams.
Mhm.
You remember him from Channel 4 in Buffalo and WGR Radio. You two have teamed up on a podcast called the Back Nine Podcast.
Yeah.
Tell folks that are watching a little bit about it and where they can find it.
So it's the back nine with the number 9, and it's on all the platforms. Bill, thanks. And you were a great guest a couple of seasons ago. So Dennis and I have been friends for 30 years. We were at sister stations in. He was in Utica and I was in Elmira, New York, before we both came up to Buffalo, and then worked at first. He was always at Channel 4. I was at Channel 2. I barely remember that before going to Empire. And we've stayed friends over the years, and we do a podcast. It's called The Back Nine. It's about midlife. It's about the back nine of life. So the tag is Midlife Best Life. We just had our second anniversary show last week. We drop every Tuesday. We've got a lot of Buffalo guests, right? From athletes like Reuben Brown and Brian Campbell to sportscasters and newscasters, Carol Jason, Kevin O'Neill, Ray Collins, if people remember some of those folks. Kevin's still on the air, of course. Jody Jackson from sports, that's going way back. And she's still doing sports in Phoenix. But we talk about different topics in midlife, right? We're both divorced. Dennis is now remarried to a woman from West Seneca. And we talk about wellness. We talk about integrative medicine, business, career pivots. We're both kind of on our third careers. And so you can find them on all the platforms. We drop new episodes every Tuesday. This week's the episode that drops today as we're recording this, Bull, is with a guy named Chase Glick, who is a young entrepreneur, and it's about how to drink healthy. He's invented a healthier vodka brand. It's a great listen just because of his insights on the weight loss that he went through and what motivated him to start this company and found this company. It's been a ton of fun. It's something that I think both Dennis and I are really passionate about, being able to contribute to middle-aged guys and helping, although a lot of our audience are women, helping middle-aged guys get through to navigate this time of life. There's a lot of changes. A lot of it has born from the discussions that we've had, Bull, and so we're really excited to present it. It's something that we both really enjoy doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's smart, it's insightful, it's entertaining, it's super good. And like Josh said, for those of you that are on your back nine, whatever number you put that on,
That's right.
wherever you've made the turn, whatever your age is when you've made the turn, it's not all bad. You may be going through
No.
some tough times, and this is a very therapeutic way of looking at things because of every episode, in one form or another, deals with adversity and then how that was dealt with, right? So,
Yeah.
um, I,
Well,
I
almost all of them. Right? I mean, there's some, right? We have the celebrities, right? We had Annika Sorenstam, we had Dan Patrick, we've had Brad Faxon, but most of them are, and those are just for fun, but most
yeah,
of them are about how do we find joy? How do we get the most out of this time of life, whether
yeah.
we're on the 10th hole or whether we're on the 18th hole, because we don't know, right? So we better commit to enjoying wherever we are in the round.
So a lot of this has come about because you guys love golf. You play frequently. You and I and Dennis are all part
Yeah.
of a long-standing golf tradition, the Kobe Cup in Florida, which we're looking forward to again in late January this year. So always great to see you, man. And
You too.
folks, look for the Back Nine, the number nine podcast, everywhere you can get podcasts. Check these guys out. They're doing great work. Former Buffalonians, both Josh and Dennis lived in Buffalo. And Josh, of course, a native Chicagoan who still roots on his Chicago teams hardcore. But the Bills teams, the Buffalo teams, they're like 1A, right? So,
Yes, absolutely. Blackhawks won, Sabres too. I always say the Bills are my third favorite football team because my second favorite team is whoever's playing Green Bay.
there you go. Perfect.
So,
I love it. I love it.
yeah. Thanks, brother.
Thank you,
Great
man.
to
I
be with you.
appreciate you doing this, and we'll talk soon.
Anytime. Look
Bye.
forward to that.